Cool. Hi, everyone. Cool. I'll start with a quick question. Any neuroscientists in the room? Okay, one. Okay, so you might want to target her afterwards. I was trying to pick some people that you can harass later. But my name is Em. I am a neuroscientist by training and have spent a lot of my life looking at brains. Another part of my background is as an emergency medic, so I spend quite a bit of time being at the front lines of where people need you the most. So it's usually when the system fails them and something has happened that wasn't supposed to happen, that's where I used to rock up, which informs a lot of my work today. And most relevantly to today's presentation, I'm the founder and CEO of Samphire Neuroscience, where we're building neurotechnology for women. So today I'm going to tell you a little bit of stuff you probably don't know, or most of you probably don't know. I'll tell you a little bit of stuff that seems unrelated to the brain at a first glance, and then I'll tell you a little bit of stuff that will seem to be based mostly in the brain at the end of hopefully the 6 minutes, or if not, you can ask the one other neuroscientist in the room. So we all know that when it comes to women's health, that it is generally underrepresented and under-researched, and in fact, we also know that it costs the world a lot of money. There's a lot of research on that. What a lot of you might not know is that actually women top out their health insurance a lot more than men across the lifespan. So oftentimes that points to us to chronic health conditions across all age groups. What you might also not know is that even though they top out that insurance, they seem to still not be getting the care they need or deserve because they still spend over $1,500 every single year on out-of-pocket expenses. And that's a number that's about twice the number that men spend on their health. And it's actually the same across all age groups as well. So there's clearly something that's not currently working by the healthcare system for women across all age groups, and especially for those of reproductive age when it comes to chronic health conditions. So people tried to understand why that's the case, and they did a survey of 30,000 women in the Netherlands. And when they asked women what symptoms impact them the most, 4 out of the 5 symptoms they mentioned as impacting their everyday life the most were mental rather than physical health symptoms. Symptoms like low mood, anxiety, irritability, anger issues, difficulty making decisions, brain fog, all of those symptoms impacted the way women feel about themselves and their careers every single day. Moreover, 86.1% of women felt that these symptoms varied across the menstrual cycle and impacted their productivity and ability to bring their best selves to work or to motherhood or whatever their responsibilities may be. And in fact, in an article released last year in a research report, McKinsey was able to show that actually PMS, or premenstrual syndrome, which encompasses exactly all of those mental symptoms I just mentioned, is actually a huge opportunity. It's the second problem that could lead to the most impact on the GDP if solved. That being said, this is a complex graph. You can take pictures or you can read the report. But the TLDR of it is that if you look at the bottom corner there, you will see the word PMS. And what it essentially means is PMS has one of the highest share of suffering, so morbidity, not mortality, costs to the female population. And yet at the moment, it had 0 identified assets in the biotech pipeline by McKinsey. So McKinsey surveyed about 2,000 different pharma companies, and they couldn't find anyone developing a drug or a pharmacological solution for PMS, or premenstrual syndrome. So it's clear that there's a huge opportunity, and we know it's mental, and as a neuroscientist, I may be biased, but we know that when we hear mental health issues, we want to look at the brain. And so we knew that the solution needed to be based in the brain, and we built it. We knew that neurotechnology is non-invasive. It doesn't have hormones and drugs, which a lot of women are leaning away from, and which is different from the value proposition that pharma could ever offer, and it doesn't have any drug-drug interactions, which increase with age. We also know that neurotechnology is easy to personalize and guarantee tracking. We know that compliance with treatments is a huge problem. Even if you develop something great, people still need to lead to behavioral change. We've heard about that before. So this is something easy to track and easy to gamify as well in order to make sure people get the best benefits. And finally, we know that, I don't know how new it is to the audience here, but neurotechnology is safe and has decades of efficacy and safety evidence across both pain and mood disorders. So, it kind of came as no surprise that we developed Nettle. And Nettle is currently the only proprietary and patented neurotechnology device on the market that is a medical-grade device. It's a Class 2A medical device cleared in Europe and the UK that we have built over the last 3.5 years with our team, clinically tested, and we're able to show that it outperformed most treatments. The way it works is it uses neurotechnology over 2 parts of the headband. The front of the headband stimulates the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for mood regulation, and the back of the headband stimulates the motor cortex, which indirectly stimulates the posterior insula, responsible for setting the pain sensitivity threshold that we see being impacted every single month. And finally, you only need to use it in relation to your cycle, only in the luteal phase for 20 minutes a day in order to lead to neuroplasticity effects. In our clinical trials, we showed that we outperformed all of the traditional treatments. And in fact, within a single menstrual cycle's use, we saw that almost 3/4 of women already noticed a massive improvement in their clinical pain. That's compared to about 40% with NSAIDs or regular painkillers. 2/3 of women noticed already a change in their mood symptoms. And 94% of people found it easy to integrate into their everyday care. Mostly because it's a headband that's easy to use and that fully connects with the app that we use to control it and sync to your menstrual cycle as well. Again, I never like to speak for our patients, only when I can be a conveyor of their truths. And I know that a lot of women live every single day with conditions like endometriosis with severe pain, PMDD with severe mood symptoms, uterine fibroids, and we have noticed it making a massive difference to their everyday life, feeling heard, and feeling finally that something long-term was being managed. Our mission as a company at Samphire Neuroscience is really to provide advanced technologies to women. We really want to be their partners for everyday life and really change the status quo. A lot of companies in women's health talk about, improving access, which is incredibly important, but we also think that improving access is step one. Ultimately, we just need better solutions. If you provide access to solutions that don't work, which many women in this room will know, that kind of leaves you in a bit of an impasse. So our mission is to build advanced and truly differentiated solutions for women, then use biomarkers and be able to learn about their health that they entrust us with in order to continue personalizing those treatments, integrating them into their other parts of care, and then finally provide them as widely and as accessibly as we can, which is why we think so thoroughly about the design of our products, having a single button, being easy to use, even if it sounds a little bit more modern. The idea is to make it simple to integrate into women's everyday lives, which we know are incredibly busy. So will the next cycle be different? It's really up to us. And even though we started speaking about women's health, which for many people doesn't point to brain health, I hope to have shown you a little bit of a glimpse of the fact that a lot of women's health problems are related to our brain health. So the answer will be in our brains, quite literally. Yeah, thanks so much.
Thank you. Amazing. Maybe a tough question. That sounds so good. It's almost hard to believe. The fact that you're saying it's delivering better outcomes than comparable drugs, that's amazing. So my question there is, we've spoken about this being a mental, 4 out of 5 of these symptoms are mental. How did this do in sort of controlled trials against placebo? Do you have any evidence on that?
The evidence and run proper clinical trials. In the neurotechnology space, we always run them as double-blinded, randomized controlled trials against a placebo device. If anyone has ever tried brain stimulation, it can kind of feel tingly for the first 5 minutes. So the way you mask that is that you use the exact same device. You just kind of put in a different code. And the first 30 seconds it tingles, but then it goes away, which is actually common for people even with regular devices. So we tingle them for the first 30 seconds, then it goes off, and then you tingle them again at the end. I think coming back to your initial comment of sounds too good to be true, to some extent, yes, when it comes to women's health. But if you think of the standard treatments that we compare ourselves against, we're talking hormonal contraceptives, which a lot of women cannot or no longer want to take, and we're talking painkillers. And none of these were actually developed for PMS and menstrual pain. They were developed for other reasons, and were actually never tested in these populations. So the number that I listed earlier, 40% of people respond to painkillers for menstrual pain. And here we're speaking independent of dose. A lot of women will never take the recommended dose. They'll take a much higher dose. And it's because they were approved as generics. And then, no one tested for the subpopulation. And for us, it was actually quite a bold decision to take a device that we know works for relatively generic mood and pain symptoms and go after the women's health population. But for us, a key part was we had 100% women in our clinical trials. We focused on menstrual cycles, even for women who are already on hormonal contraception but still feeling symptoms. And for us, it was about prioritizing this population and developing something specifically for them. So I would actually argue it's not surprising that when you build for women, you have better outcomes.
Thank you. You mentioned the next wave being to look at new biomarkers. Can you expand a little bit what you mean by that?
Yeah, for sure. So we mean it in a pretty broad sense. So we, for example, partner with other companies. You've heard from some of them before, like Ovum. We also work with Fertility and stuff like that, kind of trying to understand what does it mean at a multimodal level for women to understand their health. Historically, a lot of women just wouldn't get their health. Now I think we're at the next stage where people are kind of trying to understand their hormonal health. So they do hormonal panels, but all of the hormonal panels don't have a measure of brain health. And for any women experiencing severe cognitive symptoms around PMS or PMDD, what you'll know is PMDD, so that's a severe form of PMS, very similar, and it's actually a subtype of depression where you're depressed for the 2 weeks before your period. What they realize is those women's hormones are absolutely fine. It's how their brain responds to the hormone change. So our idea is essentially to work with other companies that kind of have all of those other measures and integrate them on the one hand to how people respond to our stimulation, but on the other hand to the symptoms that people track in relation to our stimulation and how we've impacted them, and then create more complex models that are like, look, you're a person with PMDD and ADHD, and you might also have like autism, let's say, which is actually a very common comorbidity, and like you don't necessarily need the same solution as a person with endometriosis and chronic pelvic pain that's also using Nettle. So, and that's why we have the kind of app interface to make sure we can take all of those variables into consideration. It's a work in progress.
And just a couple of final questions. So business model-wise, is it direct-to-consumer with a subscription-based app? And then also, what stage are you at the moment?
Yeah, for sure. So yes, it is primarily at the moment direct-to-consumer with a subscription and an upfront device cost. We do have a 3-month returns policy. If it doesn't work for you for 3 months, we'll return it, no questions asked. We're very confident in our technology. But we are also working with the NHS. We're currently working to set the new NICE guidelines, and if anyone has experience with that, we'd love to chat to you. And we are, again, a regulated medical device on the record, so we can already be prescribed. We just can't be reimbursed just yet. In terms of company stage, we've just raised our second fundraising round on the seed, kind of semi-confidentially, not anymore, in December. And yeah, we're looking to grow and expand in Europe and the UK. Appreciate it.
Emilé, cheers. Thanks for that.